this is Tom from Dirk Witte Music Store in Utrecht, the Netherlands. Today we are taking a look at this really cool vintage Gibson acoustic. Like, this is seriously vintage because this is from 1948 and it is a Gibson LG-1 in its original sunburst finish. Incredibly vibey little acoustic guitar. Kind of think a shrunken down J45 almost, but also a little bit more different than that because this is the LG-1. You also had the LG-0 as well as the LG-2 and the LG-3, I believe. And what was then kind of like the main difference between those models is that the LG-0 and the LG-1, so also this one would get a ladder bracing underneath the top. Whereas the LG-2 and the LG-3, I believe, would get X bracing. And so that was like, I believe the idea at the time was that the X bracing was like more fancy and more high-end, so those were kind of like the more desirable models or like the more high-end models, whereas the ladder brace ones were like the more like entry level or like a little bit more affordable models. Does not mean that these sound worse, but they sound just different because of that ladder bracing, and they sound incredibly cool. And this is just a beautiful play grade example. Like, this has been played a lot in this lifetime, which is a good thing because that means that a person or multiple people thoroughly enjoyed playing this very fine Gibson LG-1 from 1948. So super cool to have in the shop. And so yeah, let's dive into the specs. So we've got it all solid with the construction, solid spruced up. Thinking that it is Sitka spruce, but maybe Adirondack, I'm not 100% sure. And then mahogany back and sides. And again, then with ladder bracing underneath this top, which really does give it kind of like a more boxy and woody kind of tone. Not a ton of low end. So this is very, yeah, it just sounds very old, like in all of the right ways. And obviously we can also tell that, yeah, again, like I also said earlier, this has been played a bunch, so this also just screams old when it comes to the wear and the aging. Like, this has had some repairs, like multiple around the entire body, like for cracks and stuff. No 100% sure, but it could very well be that the back pieces of mahogany at one point were like coming apart, like separating, but yeah, it is now just totally intact. But also there on the sides you can maybe see there a line running there, so that was a crack at some point. As well as on this side of the body also got like two cracks, what appear to be two cracks. And also on the top the two halves were also kind of like separating maybe at some point, because we can see definitely that seam line is a little bit more like noticeable. And also here a crack, which again all have been repaired, so you do not have to worry at all because it is just in a really fine playing order. So that is obviously very nice, because you really want to play this thing like another 50 plus, like 70 years, if you will, because yeah, I mean, again, it just sounds very cool. Then got obviously a burst type of color on the top, also really nicely faded. Also got a lot of pick wear over here and over there. Got also this really cool, obviously the fire stripe photo shell pickguard, and a very plain rosette, as well as the binding around the top as well as on the back is just single ply. So again, this is like not a very high-end model at the time, but like it is just very bare bone, but it is just still a very fine sounding Gibson LG-1. Got a rosewood bridge with what appears to be a bone saddle, and then these black bridge pins. Not 100% sure if that saddle is original. I'm guessing not, because it would be like very rare actually to or like very special if this were the original saddle, because like over the years like a saddle kind of wears out. So I'm guessing that this has been replaced, and it does appear to be made out of bone, but it has been probably replaced a very long time ago, because it definitely does look old. And then moving on to the neck, we've got a mahogany neck with a rosewood fingerboard. which more than likely is then Brazilian rosewood, and then with some mother of pearl dot inlays. Also then appears that this has had a refret at some point, because these frets just look kind of like too good to be that old, but it is just again in a beautiful playing condition, so that is actually just a big plus. As for the profile, this is really not all that chunky or like beefy, because most people tend to think like old necks, those are always very large, but this is still rather medium sized. It is a little bit more chunky than medium, but just very nicely rounded, definitely a C shape, and it just plays and feels very nice and very much comfortable. And what is also nice to see is that the back of the neck is actually also relatively in a nice shape, as in that not a ton of like dings or like dents in the neck. You got a spot right here, kind of like around the third fret, but that you actually barely feel, but it is just in a really nice shape overall for its age, and also no break repair or anything like that, so that's also very nice to see. We then got a bone nut, and I'm actually guessing that that is original, because that definitely looks very old, and I don't really see any noticeable marks around the edges, but I'm not 100% sure, but this definitely looks to be original, and it definitely looks old. And then we've got this very vibey Gibson headstock, obviously with the headstock overlay, with just your plain Gibson logo silk screen, and then with your plain black truss rod cover. Then on the back we've got also what appear to be the original tuners, with the 3 on a row plastic buttons that really completes the look on this very cool and very vibey Gibson LG-1 from 1948. And then the last thing to mention, it also comes with a case, with a soft shell case. We're not 100% sure if that is the original, but it is definitely like the gator style case that you would see back in those days, like where in the more affordable models made by Gibson would be like sold in. So historically they're kind of cool, like it is cool to have them, but they are really not all of that protective or practical. So if you do decide to purchase this very fine acoustic, definitely do recommend getting a newer hard shell case for it, and just to keep that original or like keep that old case around, but like just around the house, just to like that you can like tell your friends like, hey, I have this very old gator style case. So yeah, but it is really cool to have that obviously included. So yeah, all in all, just a very cool and super vibey old Gibson acoustic. Definitely gives a very unique sound that you really cannot get from a new model or like a newly built acoustic guitar, because the sound that you get from this thing, that just takes many years of playing, a lot of aging, a lot of like drying out, and just giving it a life of its own. So yeah, that is just a very cool thing that you really cannot that you just really can only get from these very old acoustic guitars. So yeah, let's move on to that part and hear what it sounds like. But first, if you're interested in this 1948 Gibson LG-1, be sure to head over to the links in the description for further details. If you enjoyed this demo, be sure to like the video and to subscribe to the channel for more cool weekly demos of cool old acoustic guitars like these, or cool electric guitars, bass guitars even, of that really cool stuff. Also be sure to like us and to follow us on the socials, Instagram and Facebook. Links are also in the description. With all that being said, let's hear what this 1948 Gibson LG-1 sounds like. Going to be first playing some chords with a pick, and then be playing like some finger style, so that you can get a good impression of what this very vibey Gibson LG-1 from 1948 sounds like. So let's then move on to that part and hear what it sounds like, and let's take it for a spin.
Mm-hmm.